This is the last in the series of Introduction to Ancient Numismatics. This one has been the most difficult among all the other presentations because of the fact that we cover approximately 1,000 years, and there is an overwhelming amount of material to talk about. So my initial presentation included more than 100 slides. So I shortened it depending on where I was presenting this. And I have presentations with 60 slides. I have presentations with 20 slides. So it took a while for me to add a couple new ones and then deleted a couple others. I hope that later Roman kings and queens will forgive me for neglecting some of them, but it was painful, I must admit. Anyways, let's start. As I said, Byzantine coins or later Roman coins, we have an overwhelming history of 1,000 years. And when we say Byzantine coins, people usually picture these types of photographs. Even looking at these coins, these photographs, overwhelms anyone who is interested in ancient coins. You need to see them one by one. You need to see definitions, clear definitions, but they are so abundantly available, and they are so not well known, even though they are abundantly available. They scare many people, not to mention the fact that they don't always come in gold, but they mostly come in the state of preservation as we see here. So most of the time they are neglected unless they are struck from precious metals. As I always do, I did a Google search yesterday, and I had 64,100,000 results for the word Byzantine. When I did that for the first time in 2010, the number was 8 million, roughly 9 million. And when I put Byzantine Empire, the results numbered 35 million. I know it's like fighting the windmill, but I still want to do my part in the fight. There was no Byzantine Empire in history, and I think it is outrageous that we even today continue using this this name. Everything started with this German scholar called Hieronymus Wolff. He compiled a Byzantine historiography called Corpus Historiae Byzantinae. It's 1557. His intention was not rename the Roman Empire. It was just the name of his compilation. However, later on, people somehow liked it, and people continued researching the so-called Byzantinae history. And the name, of course, comes from the ancient Greek city at the location of Constantinopolis, Istanbul, in modern times. So historians of the Middle Ages, after the Renaissance, had a perplexing dilemma in front of them. On the one point, they were rediscovering ancient Greek and Roman history. They were admiring. On the other hand, they were talking about these pagans that their religion for hundreds of years denounced. So are we going to glorify the Roman Empire against our religious beliefs, or are we going to separate the Roman Empire, the pagan Roman Empire, from the Christian Roman Empire? I think that discussion in the minds of the scholars of 17th and 18th century was really big, and they pushed the word Byzantine or Byzantine or whatever pronunciation you prefer for that, because most likely the original Greek pronunciation was Byzantium. And it is so well established now, it's almost impossible to fight. There are literally hundreds of books, thousands of articles, research papers, thousands of websites for Byzantine coins for an empire that was always the Roman Empire. Anyways, let's start with our presentation now. So what do we call it, actually? Regardless of what we want to call it, the last Roman emperor who was killed fighting at Constantinople, defending the walls of the Constantinople, called himself the emperor of the Romans. But of course, it's a huge time period that we're talking about. Some people like to call it Eastern Roman Empire, and others like to call it later Roman Empire. My friend, numismatist Wayne Salis, offered Romaion, as you see it on some coins. But no matter what we try to call it, it was the Roman Empire until the end. In fact, it continued to be the Roman Empire because Muhammad II, the conqueror of the Ottomans, proclaimed himself the new Roman emperor. It was not something that other Ottoman emperors pursued, but Fatih, the conqueror, simply proclaimed himself the new Roman emperor. During the time of Justinian, it almost recovered most of the areas that the late Republic claimed in the 1st century BC. So this is really remarkable. But the history of this 1,000 years is full of devastations, full of wars, defeats, victories, and frequent change of power in different parts of the empire. And what better material can we study the change of rule in that area but coins? We start this period with Anastasius, purely because he introduced a new monetary system. Some historians start the later Roman Empire much earlier, from the 2nd or the 3rd century AD. However, numismatically, we numismatists prefer starting the later Roman period with Anastasius, because the monetary system had collapsed during the time of Zeno. Bronze coins simply disappeared. He only had gold coins. Silver disappeared wherever the silver went. Nobody knows. And bronze, especially bronze, when you don't have bronze coins, you cannot talk about a monetary system, because bronze is the main currency for people to appreciate the exchange system. I felt really bad when Canada decided to stop minting the 1 cent. It's a shame that we had to lose that coin. Yes, it was not very valuable in terms of purchasing power, but sentimentally, it was the lowest denomination that we had in Canada, and it was a sad loss in terms of numismatics of numismatical history of Canada. Anyways, Anastasius is a very interesting personality. He was just a technocrat, a government official. At the death of Zeno, Ariadne, the widow of Zeno, arranged that he is proclaimed the next emperor. And shortly after his accession to the throne, she married him. So this is such a typical activity in the Roman Empire in the Middle Ages. You will see a lot of conspiracies instigated by female members of the empire within the palace, and emperors were selected by women and through their conspiracies. The new emperor was about 60 years old at the time he ascended to the throne. He gained popularity by a judicious remission of taxation, and he displayed great energy in administering the affairs of the empire. And apparently he had one eye black and one eye blue. I don't know how to interpret that. What he did in terms of monetary development is that he reassessed and reintroduced 3 gold denominations in a logical way. One stater, 1/2 and 1/3 of that. And then 2 silver denominations, again, very logically proportionate to the gold. And finally, 5 new copper denominations. And for the first time during this period, we have a comprehensive value marks on all the coins, which will become widespread and will continue with different denominations with different value marks later on. So this tells us that the economy of the Roman Empire during the time of Anastasius was stable. He managed to stabilize the financial system of the empire. And despite the fact that there were numerous attacks from the west, from the east, he was not a good soldier. He was not able to make right decisions to run military campaigns. However, he knew how to manage the country. And he was lucky enough to have good soldiers to help him in the military section, but otherwise, he was a very, very successful emperor. And when you look at the coins, you see a rather slim gentleman. You wouldn't know if he's old or not, or if he's 60 years old or not. Rather, especially on the South FOLLES, I would like to see a younger person. And on others, you can see a certain distinction of personality. Especially when you look at the coins of Zeno, the previous emperor, you will see the differences. And on the gold, on the solidus, you don't really see the distinction. It's very generic. However, on the semises and tremises, you see a certain distinctive portrait of a person. And the same is true, especially on this siliqua. I would say he was a slim gentleman with full hair and quite a presentable person based on his coinage. And the denominational relationship is here. Of course, again, this is very generic. This is up to 8800. After 8800, everything collapsed, everything changed. There were ups and downs every now and then, but the decline of the Roman Empire continued sharply after 8800. Those who know a little bit about the Roman coinage previous period know that there were literally hundreds of mints, if not thousands. When you look at this map, which I made up for David's book, catalog, you see almost all the mints of the later Roman Empire. And remarkably, David Herman collection includes all the mints that you see here. So it's a very, very interesting catalog to study and to learn from, I believe. The number of mints varied in each period. In certain times, you only had Constantinople and Salonika, and then Nicomedia was added to that. And especially a mint is a well-established mint if it produces bronze coinage. Otherwise, it's just the order of the emperor striking gold coins in Salonika or Nicomedia or Cyzicus. It doesn't mean much, numismatically, of course. Economically, yes, it's important that they mint gold coins. But in terms of facilitating daily commerce, bronze coins simply symbolizes the stability of the empire. Gold coins mostly have the mint mark con, an abbreviation for Constantinople. And we always see the OB addition to con, which in Latin is obrisum, which means pure gold. And it's 72 to the pound. Its denominational value. As I said, gold coins were minted elsewhere. The mints were treated as extensions of the one in Istanbul or Constantinople. And the products of the other mints can only be distinguished by their specific fabric, style, or provenance. Otherwise, they will all say con ob. On the bronze coinage, however, we see the mints either in their abbreviated forms or in full names. Here, Constantinople, here, Roma, Cyzicus, Nicomedia, Theopolis, that is Antioch, when its name changed to Theopolis for a short while, but here is one from Antioch. This one is Seleucia, Isaura, and this one is Sicily, Syracuse, and this one is Salonika, and Carthage, Alexandria, Ravenna, and very rare, Damascus. It's really difficult to find Damascus one, so it must have been a short-lived mint at Damascus. In 629, Heraclius reduced the number of Eastern mints and limited minting for the eastern half of the empire to Constantinople and Alexandria. The provincial mints continued in the West, in Ravenna, Rome, Carthage, for as long as they were in the imperial possession. As I said, one day you have it, next day you don't have it. It was such a volatile situation at that time. After the mid-8th century, no mint marks were used at all. This is remarkable. So we don't see any mint marks after the 8th century. Even when provincial mints are known to have existed at that time, notably Syracuse and Salonika, well, forget about them. Even Constantinople is not mentioned during that time. We need to look at the gold coins. The solidus, or previous denomination called aureus, was continued by solidus. And then we have tetarteron nomisma and histamenon nomisma. We're not really sure if what these denominations or gold pieces were called at that time. Some of them are derived from certain texts, but there is no text clearly defining these denominations. Even when you look at the peace agreement between Alparslan and Romanus IV in 1071, after the War of Manzikert, the emperor was supposed to pay 1,500,000 pieces of gold, it says. It doesn't mention any denomination. So in many texts, you only hear gold pieces. You don't even hear silver mentioned, and of course, bronze is not mentioned at all. Among the gold denominations, after solidus, we have tetarteron nomisma, we said. So it is a slightly lighter, but otherwise identical gold coin. The tetarteron nomisma in Greek means lacking a quarter. It was first struck under Nicephorus II during late 1900s. And then we have histamenon nomisma, that is full weight. In practice, it was not important to distinguish the two types, as payments were made by weight, not number of coins. During the reign of Basil II, the histamenon became a larger and thinner coin, but keeping its original weight. And then during the reign of Constantine IX, it became sky-shaped, cup-shaped. Both changes serving to distinguish it from the tetrarteron, which kept its old form. So at the same time, they have their original coins, but they felt the need to vary the denominational system. So when we say this, we have to keep in mind that especially gold coins were in the hands of certain people, either in the government operations or in big transactions, commercial transactions. For daily exchange, maybe your typical person, peasant, or a small merchant on the alley of Constantinople never saw any of these gold coins in his lifetime. Beginning from the reign of Mikhail IV, the purity of gold coins fell gradually, and by the accession of Alexius I in 1081, it was down to 26%. So for quite a long time, they kept the purity of gold when they minted them. But as time went by, that was not even possible. And during a long period of time, almost 300 to 400 years, they didn't use silver coins. Later on, a large thin coin called the milliaresium, which means 1,000, was introduced during the time of Constantine IX. And then immediately it turned into an ally first, copper and silver, as we see here, and then it completely became a copper coin after a while. For whatever reason, either the silver mines were depleted at that time, or silver was accumulated in the hands of certain people, maybe by trade. Silver went to different parts of the world. It was not possible to mint silver coins. The imagery and inscriptions on the later Roman coins are remarkable. It's really an area that I enjoy studying and researching, and I find gems everywhere. The subject matter of the coins that we're talking about today is generally limited to the imperial family, military and religious subjects, notably Christ, the Virgin, and in the days of the Comneni and their successors, the angelic, favorite saints. The imperial representations are depersonalized and formalized when compared to earlier Roman types. As you can see here, you don't see a person. It's just a representation of the emperor, some kind of an emperor. How do we know he's an emperor? From his dress, from his headdress, from the way he holds globus cruciger, and of course there is the legend that clearly says Dominus Noster Justinianus Perpetuus Augustus. So our Lord Justinianus forever Augustus or Augustus. And on the reverse, again, praising the emperor, Victoria Augustus, Augusti, Victoria Augustorum, the victorious Lord. And that is an attestation to Jesus Christ, of course. The imagery is really interesting when you go deeper into researching. Coins are usually inscribed most often with the name of the current emperor or emperors and a title, such as Emperor of the Romans. Religious formulae were favored, especially Jesus Christ, King of Kings. And when you look at these individual coins, you see the imagery is quite elaborate. It's not something so simple. The hairdo of the emperor here is quite distinctive. He wears a pearl diadem crown with a large cross, and his chlamys is very, very elaborate. And then he's holding a globus cruciger in his hand. Here is a coin of Constans II with Constantine IV, Heraclius, and Tiberius. So the emperor introduces his heirs to the throne on this coinage. Four people, and very definitive depiction of personalities, even though you don't really see the lifelike depictions that we are used to seeing on earlier Roman examples. But here is the facing bust of Constans II with a plume headdress, and then right next to him is Constantine IV, and on the reverse you have a cross with 3 steps, and on the left-hand side Heraclius, and on the right-hand side you have Tiberius. And you see everything that they have: the headdress, the robes, the crosses that they hold are all there. On some coins, we see the emperor holding what they called akakia, which was a purple silk roll containing dust. I don't know how it was holding the dust in it. I tried to find a depiction of an akakia otherwise, but I was not able to locate one. But it must have been a significant symbol, so that it was used on many, many coins. So this is one for Leontius. And I think this is one of the most remarkable and beautiful coin of the later Roman period, minted in the name of Constantine IV, 668, 685. Look at the headdress. You don't even see this kind of detail on the Athenian tetradrachms. You don't see that in many other well-known mints, emperors or kings. The way he holds his spear behind his head, his kurewas, and 3/4 facing portrait, and even he's holding a shield with an ornamentation of a rider, most likely the emperor himself. It's a very, very beautifully rendered art piece, not only a means of exchange at that time. And empresses are also represented on coins quite nicely. And if you compare their depiction on coins with those of, say, mosaics, for instance, you can see the resemblance. So the coin die engravers, did their part to represent the emperors and empresses, young emperors, infant emperors, if you look at them more closely. Constantine, the first defeat of his rival Maxentius at the Milvian Bridge in 330 AD was a turning point in the history of Christianity, for Constantine attributed his victory to the protection of the Christian God. So religious formulae were favored, especially Jesus Christ, we said. So the first coin with the likeness of Jesus Christ comes during the time of Justinian II, during his first reign. And on this coin, we see a rather older Jesus Christ, but very elaborately again depicted wearing loros and wearing a robe, and his hand his right hand is rising in benediction or in blessing, and he's holding the book of Gospels. And the God or prophet took the obverse of the coin. So the emperor simply gave precedence to Jesus Christ, and his depiction was placed on the reverse of the coin. Again, the depiction of Jesus Christ changed depending on the taste of the time. Here, during the second reign of Justinian II, not many years after the first one, we see Jesus Christ quite like a young man. The depiction is very similar to the first one, but we have a very young looking Jesus Christ. And on the reverse, at this time, we have the bust of the emperor instead of the full figure that we saw in the first example. The Virgin Mary also appears on coins. Even though I only have a gold example here, both Jesus Christ and Virgin Mary appear on all denominations in all metals. Silver when it was minted, gold and bronze or copper. So this is a coin of Leo VI, the Wise. On the obverse is facing half-length bust of Mary Orans, Mary, praying Mary, with her name, Maria Matro Dol, mother of the God. And on the reverse is the depiction of the emperor. He was, he looks as an elderly contemplative philosopher here, but he was only 46 at his death. We are familiar to this kind of depictions. Commodus, the Roman emperor, son of the philosopher emperor, Marcus Aurelius, was also depicted with long beard in a philosopher-like guise. So the emperor was simply trying to give a message with his depiction on his coinage. And just like we see on the coins of Alexander the Great, Zeus enthroned, here Christ enthroned. The only difference is this time Christ is facing, raising right hand in blessing and holding the book of Gospels. And on the reverse, Emperor Alexander standing facing. with all his garments and everything, holding globus chrysaor. But most importantly, he is crowned by Saint Alexander, wearing pallium and collobium and holding cross. Quite an elaborate scene if you look at it closely. And of course, you need to look at the legends. They are also very definitive of the philosophy of these emperors. And if you look at this mosaic from Hagia Sophia, you can see the resemblance of the likeness of the emperor. Virgin Mary became a constant topic after a certain time period, and this depiction was adopted from an icon in the Bekircan monastery in Constantinople. The Romanus dynasty started with Romanus I, sought the protection of Mary when he launched his assaults against the Jengids in Aleppo in 1030 AD. This campaign was not very successful, but the belief set by the imperial power was very well established. Even during the siege of the Ottomans, many people who were stranded within the walls of the Constantinople believed that Virgin Mary would protect them, that their city would not fall. And this is something that we see constantly on the coins, the emphasis of the mother of the god. And here the legend is interesting. He who places his hope in thee, O Virgin, will prosper in all he does. Manus Dei is another interesting figure that we see on coins. On this one, Manus Dei is here and here again. Of course, this is pure propaganda. These emperors simply say that they were ascended to the throne or remain in the throne thanks to the blessings of the god. And but who would have thought of doing something like that? It's a very interesting addition to the message of the emperor when they minted these coins. Praying Virgin, protector of the city, as I mentioned previously. This is considered one of the late Roman architectural types. The walls of Constantinople protected by Mary, the Mother of God. And on this one, you have a complete scene of three figures. The Archangel Michael presenting Michael the Eighth to Christ. It's quite stylistic, but you can literally see that the emperor is kneeling, he's on his knees. The Archangel is behind, nimbate, and here Jesus Christ enthroned and putting his head on the emperor's head in blessing. You cannot go further than this to proclaim the way the emperor was ascended to the throne. Power of inscriptions continue appearing on the coins of other emperors. Here it says, Deus adjuta Romanes, God help the Romans. And I think you will all know this one. Modern mints continue using the old traditions. And on this one, we see Leo, by the grace of God, King of Romans. Date 886, 912. There are certain titles that were adopted at that time, later fell from grace, and one of them is despot. It's from Greek and Latin, roughly dominus, was a strictly courtly dignity without specific military or administrative functions or powers, in spite of enjoying the highest position of honor below an emperor. So it was a title that was given to the next in line. However, later on, we see that it was adopted by the emperors too. And we see the same inscription on other art forms as we see here. Then comes the time of anonymous FOLLES. This is a time when there was a certain degree of stability because we have bronze coins. However, it was not important by who or when many of these coins were struck. It was just a monetary operation, a money-making operation, whoever was the authority that ordered and made possible of minting of these coins. But there are many, many different types. There are a good list of examples in the David Herman collection, which I learned a lot while cataloging those coins. So I would definitely recommend that you take a look at that catalog, which is available on my academia page at the moment. There is a lot to learn from these anonymous FOLLES. Believe it or not, there are bronze coins in the crudest state of preservation that were overstruck during the various periods of the later Roman era. So here is a Heraclius coin. You can see that it is from, I think it is from Nicaea, but on here you see coin. So it's a coin minted in Constantinople, and then it was reminted, overstruck in Nicomedia. And this one is another one by Constance. Why would you ever want to overstrike this? But they did. So it meant something to those people, and they restruck them. You hardly see gold coins overstruck, but there is at least one example from the David Herman collection again. And look at this one. Yeah, it's a wonder why they bothered to overstrike a 5 numi coin, but again, it must have meant something to those people, and they simply used the old coin to strike new ones. And then we have contemporary imitations. I understand that these are all simple coins. Literally, they don't have any value unless the issuing emperor or authority says that they have a certain value. So these are all FOLLES, 40 numi coins, just in one, and again, just in one. But somebody took the trouble to mint imitations. And these are also from the David Herman collection. And then you have countermarks. And some of the countermarks are so elaborate as the one that we see here, Constance II. It was, the countermark was put in Sicily, and SCL is seen here with the emperor's likeness and hero symbol on a coin of most likely Anastasius or Justin the First. It's hard to distinguish. Probably Justin the First. However, look at the perfect rendition of the countermark and the distinction of the mint that put the countermark. Then you have this Arab Byzantine or late Roman coin for Constance II. There are multiple countermarks, one here and one here. So later Roman coins are most of the time criticized for having poor art. And I would like to invite you to elaborate on this. I argue that there is a certain degree of change of artistic style and taste, rather than art declining and becoming poor. I am giving you examples of deities and Jesus Christ here, and Virgin Mary against a nymph from Syracuse, an emperor, a king. On bronze coins, maybe, yes, the representations are rather figurative, not personages, but figures only. But when I look at this one, I stop arguing. This one is from Syracuse Mint, and here is a Syracuse Mint's work a couple hundred years ago. So my argument is, yes, in certain areas, on certain denominational works, the art declined. It was just representative. It was just a coin. Who would say that this one is Constantine V and Leo IV? And what is this on the reverse? There is another figure, but it's hard to distinguish. It's impossible to distinguish by looking at the figures. And this is the mint that once struck coins like this one. Okay, so after this overview, I would like to give you some examples of coins from certain distinguished emperors. Justin the First is remarkable because he was illiterate, according to the historians, but he was a very good emperor. By the time Anastasius died, he was the choice of the army ranks. His reign is significant for the founding of a dynasty and laws that de-emphasize the influence of the old Roman nobility. Now, remember, you have an illiterate person, and the Roman nobility always looked down on them. And the people around him worked with him to change the way the empire thought at that time. During his time, at least one city was named after him, Anazarbus. I think there was a big earthquake and the city was badly ruined, and he provided monetary aid, and the city simply changed its name to Justinopolis in 525. When you look at his coinage, gold coins, again, personless depiction of the emperor. On the reverse is the angel. However, on the silver and bronze coins, you can see a certain degree of likeness of the emperor. And here is a coin die for a FOLLES. And apparently it's an original die, it's not a fake die. It's very worn, so it was used for many, many years. But it gives us an idea as to what a coin die looked like. So it's for the mint of Nicomedia. Justin wisely surrounded himself with trusted advisors, including his nephew, Flavius Petrus Sabatius. That would change his name and would be Justinianus. In 525, Justin repealed a law that prohibited a member of the senatorial class from marrying a woman from a lower class of society, including the theater. Actually, this was just an ordered change of law, because Justinianus was in love with Theodora, who was a former mime actress. And just for her to, just for him to marry her, he changed it. But it was embraced by many groups of people, to the dismay of the nobility. And before he died, he proclaimed Justinian co-emperor and minted coins with him depicted right next to him. And even on bronze coins, even when he has only his own likeness, in the legend, he indicated that Dominus Noster Justin et Justinian. So we see that it's a joint reign of the two emperors. Justinian was a remarkable personality. He ruled for 38 years. That's a very, very long time. And the empire marked an economical and military blooming at that time. Many Western territories were recovered. The building campaign was remarkable. The Hagia Sophia in Constantinople was built during his time. But one of the most important achievements of Justinian is the Corpus Juris Civilis, a uniform rewriting of the Roman law. And his coinage is extremely elaborate. On the gold coins, you see a certain personality depiction. However, it remains to be personless. However, on silver and bronze coins, again, we see certain likeness to a person. And you can see the extent of mints. So many different mints produce coins, especially Western mints. The Roman mint examples are really interesting. You can see that there is a certain person here instead of just a figure as we see here. I think Heraclius was one of the most distinguished emperors of the later Roman period, because not only because of his military achievements, but a system that he introduced into the military development saved the empire for many centuries to come. His father and he rebelled against Phocas, and they finally found support at Constantinople, and they executed the emperor as soon as they entered the city. The empire was in a very desperate situation. The Avars were fighting in the west and Persians in the east. But he developed this idea of granting land to individuals in return for hereditary military service. This is a system where you grant some land to a certain military commander, and this person promises to raise manpower for the empire. It is called themata. Each theme under the command of a strategos, literally military systems. Later on, were taken by the Persians and the Avars. And his coinage is very elaborate. During the reign of Heraclius, for the first time, he also acquired the assistance of the Khazars and other Turkic troops. And so the entrance of the Turkic soldiers, mercenaries, actually began in the 600s. He wanted to change a lot of things, and he knew that change was necessary, and he started by changing his title to King of Kings first, and then simply calling himself Basileus, dropping Augustus. A few other emperors after him continued using Augustus, but many of them later on will continue using that title. And the most remarkable action he took was changing the official language to Greek. This is the time when Greek became the official language of the Roman Empire. That doesn't necessarily mean the use of Latin stopped like a knife cut, but it was no longer the official language of the empire. He lived long enough, unfortunately, to see the collapse of much of what he built. He left the empire to both Heraclius Constantine and Heraclanos to rule jointly with Martina as empress and mother of both. Interestingly, as soon as he dies and his sons take over, the mother lost her tongue, which we're going to talk about now. So we have here Constantine IV. After his father's assassination and the suppression of the rebellion of Nicesus, the Armenian, Constantine IV was proclaimed emperor at Sicily his father was campaigning at Sicily and brought the army back to Constantinople. Muawiyah invaded Sicily, the prophet of the Islamic forces at that time, North Africa and Anatolia, and finally put siege on Constantinople in 674. The siege continued until 678 when Romans started to utilize the Greek fire to defeat the Arab armies. This is an interesting depiction of the Greek fire. It was invented by Caldenicus, a refugee from Syrian Heliopolis. It was he developed some kind of a pump, and they were simply bursting this fire onto enemy ships, and as soon as it touched the timber, so it was burning. The formula of this flammable liquid was considered a state secret at that time, and it was so zealously guarded that the essential elements remain unknown to this day. The coinage is beautiful, especially gold and the existing silver denominations. He first ruled in association with his brothers Heraclius and Tiberius. In 681, however, he had a son, Justinian, and he decided to exclude his brothers from the reign. And the action that he took was quite remarkable. Nose slitting, tongue slitting, defacing, which was a practice, an Oriental practice that was quite common in Persia at that time, or before that time even. But he chose to deface his brothers so that they would not fit for the position. The practice of mutilation by the later Romans, which probably began in 641 with the tongue slitting of Martina, as we just mentioned, and nose slitting of Heraclanus. It was, the idea was to disfigure that person so that he's ineligible to rule. And from this time on, from Constantine the fourth's time on, you will see a lot of these happening. Justinian II, first reign, is important. As we mentioned previously, he was quite a religious, devout religious person, and he introduced the likeness of Jesus Christ for the first time on his gold coins. And his depiction is not unremarkable, actually quite elaborate, as you see on this one. And also you can see his full figure from the Syracusan mint on this bronze coins. Leo III, the Isaurian, is important in many different ways. He claimed the throne through several conspiracies, and finally he captured the son of Theodosius in Nicomedia and forced the emperor to abdicate, and so that he became emperor. He sought religious uniformity in the empire, even at the cost of forced conversion of dissident Jews and Montanists. He was succeeded by his son, Constantine V. But what he started was quite remarkable. In 726, he promoted the iconoclasts, a group that believed that adoration of icons and other physical representations of religious subjects was wrong. I think this came as an inspiration from the introduction of Islam, because the same idea was promoted by Islam, because at that time icons were everywhere, and Islam prohibited the use of the imagery of humans, predominantly Prophet Muhammad. So Leo III promoted that same ideal. To enforce their beliefs, the iconoclasts destroyed many works of art during his reign. Constantine VI and Irene, or Irene, is remarkable. It's a very, very ambitious empress, mother of the emperor, quite reminiscent of Cleopatra Thea of the Seleucids. Cleopatra Thea started with Alexander Belus in 150 BC and continued to occupy a powerful position in the Seleucid throne until 121, when she tried to poison her son and become sole ruler, but her son simply forced her to drink the poisonous drink, and that's how she died. And Irene is very, very similar, or the story of Irene is very, very similar to that of Cleopatra Thea. Her son was only 9 years old when he ascended to the throne. Of course, he was the regent, and but as the coinage shows, she quickly relegated her son to second place. This caused quite a bit of dissatisfaction among the supporters of Constantine, and his uncle, Caesar Nikephoros, became favorable. Against that, Constantine, with the help of his mother, of course, blinded his uncle. And the tongues of his father's 4 other brothers cut off. After a certain age, he married, and then he divorced his wife Maria of Amnia, and because she didn't bear male heir for him, and he married his mistress Theodote. Where else can you find such soap opera-like happenings? By his action, Constantine had lost all support both of the ruling Orthodox and the iconoclast opposition. In 797, Constantine was captured and blinded by supporters of his mother, who had organized a conspiracy. The mother is blinding her own son to take over the power. And in 802, she was also deposed after attempting to arrange a marriage between herself and Charlemagne. The Pope refused recognizing Irene's reign and crowned Charlemagne as the Holy Roman Emperor, Western Roman Empire. Such an ambitious lady, and her coinage is very remarkable, and silver resurfaced during the time of, I should say, Constantine the Sixth, and on the silver coinage, on the bronze coinage, you see she takes the obverse, and on the reverse is young emperor, and on this one she puts her name as Kings of God. And on other coins, she always takes precedence over her son. And after a while, during her sole reign, she has so ambitiously put her likeness both on the obverse and the reverse of this called solidus. And on bronze coins, you see her very nicely depicted. Such an ambitious lady. Romanus IV, Diogenes, was one of the most unfortunate military personages and emperors. He got really lucky at the beginning. He was risen to distinction in the army until he was convicted of conspiracy to seize the throne in 1067. While waiting for his execution, he was summoned into the presence of the Empress Regent Evdokia, who granted him a free pardon and married him on January 1st, 1068. This is, from death to the throne. A very, very interesting story. He carried three successful campaigns. He carried on three successful campaigns against the Seljuk Turks. He was successful at the beginning, but at the Battle of Manzikert on August 26, 1071, he became isolated from the bulk of his army, and he was captured. It was a disastrous defeat for the Roman army. However, Romanus was treated with respect by his captor. When they discovered that he was the emperor of the Romans, he was brought to Alparslan, and he was treated very with dignity, and instead of killing, Alparslan wanted to take advantage of this, and he wanted to ransom. And initially, he demanded that 10 million gold pieces are paid, but then realizing it was too exaggerated, he agreed to get paid 1.5 million plus an annual tribute of 360,000 gold coins. The situation at the capital was bad. Unfortunately, the emperor was released, went to Constantinople, but Evdokia, actually a widow of Constantine the 10th, deposed him and later killed him in exile, and took the throne with her eldest son, Mikhail Dukas. On this coin, we see the emperor and the empress and their three children. And on this coin, we see emperor and the empress with Virgin Mary on the obverse. Alexius I Komnenos was a brilliant soldier and administrator. Against the Seljuk invasion in Anatolia, he asked Pope Urban II for help in the form of mercenary forces. However, the Pope preached the First Crusade at the Council of Clermont. The first disorganized group of crusaders led by the preacher Peter the Hermit was destroyed by the Turks in 1096. The Second Crusade was relatively successful, and most of the Western Anatolia was recovered during 1097-99. Alexius I had stabilized the Roman Empire and overcome a dangerous crisis, inaugurating a century of imperial prosperity and success. Among the many reforms, he introduced an entirely new system of coinage in 1092. Full weight gold coin, the Hyperperion, super refined, 5% to the pound, and 20.5 carat in fineness. This, as well as the most of the other new coins, was large, thin, and cup-shaped. The lower denominations were the Electrum Aspron Traci, white uneven, worth 1/3 of the Hyperperion, and the Billion Aspron Traci at 48 to the Hyperperion. The silver content of the Billion Aspron Traci fell from approximately 7% to 0, and its value to 184 to the Hyperperion by the end of the 12th century. All the same, you have a new, definitively organized new monetary system that shows the elaborate system he developed. And finally, Constantine the 11th, Palaiologos, reigned from 1448 to 1453. By the time he succeeded his brother John VIII on the throne, the Roman Empire consisted of a small parcel of the land in Morea and the city of Constantinople, as you see. When the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II decided to eliminate what had become a minor nuisance to the Turks, the final result was inevitable. Constantinople was taken by siege, and the last emperor died fighting at the battlements, rejecting the pleas of his courtiers to flee to safety. The sparse, miserable examples of the final coinage of Constantinople were probably struck in the final months of the city's existence as payment to the full of soldiers and to the handful of soldiers and dedicated foreign mercenaries that held the walls to the end against overwhelming odds. Since gold coins ceased to be struck circa 1353, heavy silver ones were required to take their place. The full stavrata were complemented by hells and eights. So these are the last two coins the Roman Empire issued. And as you see on the last coins, the last emperor still claims that he is the king of the Romans. So there's no Byzantine, there's no mention of Byzantine Empire, nothing. And why would you ever not use such a remarkable name, Roman? And they continued using the same name because they believed that they were the Romans. I have some book recommendations for further reading. For attribution, of course, the most important reference is the Dumbarton Oaks catalog. Comes in 5 volumes, quite expensive, but available in certain libraries. I learned a lot from Wayne Salus's Ancient Coin Collecting 5, the Ramayana Byzantine culture, and of course David Sears' Byzantine coins and their values is a very valuable reference. Philip Grierson's Byzantine coinage is an important reference. And finally, David and Rachel Herman collection of Byzantine coins can be a good reference for those who are interested in this time period of coinage. And those who would like to read a very interesting, intriguing book full of conspiracies and soap opera-like stories, Procopius's The Secret History tells mostly about Justinian, his wife, and his sister, and the incidents that they were involved. Thank you for attending this talk, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.